The holographic display flickered with a pale blue light, casting Captain Zara Vor's scaled features in an ethereal glow. Her species, the Zornak, had long ago transcended the limitations of biological evolution through cybernetic augmentation. Each of her forearms ended in precision-engineered manipulators that could interface directly with the most complex computer systems. Yet, as she studied the planet designated as Earth in the Galactic Registry, something about it made her secondary neural cluster twitch with an unfamiliar sensation. Uncertainty. Preliminary analysis, she commanded, her voice a precise blend of biological resonance and electronic modulation. Lieutenant Krell, a younger Zornak officer whose carapace still gleamed with the polish of recent academy graduation, brought up a series of data streams. Holographic windows populated the space around the planetary model, each containing a different set of metrics. Population, 8.1 billion biological units, Krell began, his voice betraying a hint of youthful enthusiasm. Technological development. Category 2.7 on the Galactic Advancement Scale. Current observed space capabilities. Limited orbital infrastructure. Primitive interplanetary exploration. Zara's primary optical sensor zoomed in on the planet's surface. Continents sprawled across blue oceans, a patchwork of green and brown interrupted by massive urban centers. Compared to the sleek planned metropolises of the Zornak Empire, these human settlements looked chaotic, almost organic. Military expenditure? She inquired, a mandible clicking with anticipation. Krell pulled up another window. Approximately 2.4 trillion Earth currency units annually. Compared to our last 3 conquests, this is remarkably low. The numbers told a story of apparent vulnerability. The Zornak had conquered civilizations with far more impressive statistical profiles. 127 successful. Planetary acquisitions hung in the Imperial records, each a testament to the Empire's technological supremacy. Earth looked like it would be number 128, a footnote in their expanding galactic domain. Bring up the conflict history, Zara ordered. The hologram shifted, revealing a scattered timeline of human conflicts. Primitive warfare evolved into more complex confrontations, world wars, regional skirmishes, technological leaps punctuated by periods of relative peace. But something caught Zara's attention, a pattern that her augmented brain found difficult to quantify. Every conflict, no matter how devastating, seemed to end with humanity not just surviving but advancing. "Lieutenant," she said, her voice dropping to a low, contemplative tone, "analyze the technological progression following each major conflict." Krell's fingers danced across the holographic interface. Graphs began to emerge, exponential curves, of technological development that defied conventional patterns. After each major war, humanity's technological capabilities didn't just improve, they transformed. "Curious," Krell muttered. "Their rate of technological adaptation is unusual." Zara's secondary neural cluster began running predictive models. The numbers should have been comforting. Zornak battlecruisers could obliterate entire planetary defense systems. Their quantum encryption was unbreakable. Their energy weapons could slice through reinforced planetary shields like molecular silk. And yet, a memory surfaced, a classified report from a reconnaissance mission to a planet called Centauri Prime. An entire scout fleet disappeared without a trace. The official report cited environmental interference, but Zara had always suspected something more. "Lieutenant," she said, "pull up all redacted reports concerning preliminary reconnaissance missions to potential conquest targets." The hologram flickered. Fragments of reports appeared, many with massive sections blacked out. But even in their censored state, a pattern emerged. Preliminary scout ships, complete communication blackout. No return, not destruction, neutralization. Krell noticed her tension. "Captain, is something wrong?" Zara's 4 hands moved with practiced precision, zooming and rotating the holographic Earth. Something about this planet felt different. Not threatening. Not yet, but alive. Adaptive. "Prepare the initial reconnaissance probe," she ordered. "But modify standard approach protocols. Something about this world demands careful consideration. She didn't see the slight tremor in Krell's communication tendrils. Didn't notice how the holographic display seemed to pulse ever so slightly, as if something was watching back. The invasion of Earth was about to begin, and nothing, absolutely nothing, would go according to plan. The Shadow Cutter glided through the void, a marvel of Zornak stealth technology that had never failed a reconnaissance mission. Commander Rix allowed himself a moment of professional pride. 8 quantum dampeners, a skin of metamaterial adaptive camouflage, and sensor-bending algorithms that could make the ship invisible to even the most advanced detection systems. This would be simple. His crew of 12 moved with the precision of a single organism. Biomechanical interfaces connected each crew member directly to the ship's systems. Thought became action. Sensors became extensions of their collective consciousness. Approaching Earth's orbital perimeter, announced Nav Specialist Mira, her voice a calm electronic blend of biological and synthetic tones. The first anomaly occurred 17.3 standard galactic minutes into the approach. Mira's hands froze above her control interface. The ship's sensor arrays, which should have been painting a detailed map of Earth's orbital infrastructure, began to shift, not malfunction. Shift. "Commander," she said, a tremor of uncertainty breaking her usual composure. "The satellite network is responding." Rix leaned forward. Satellite networks didn't respond. They transmitted. They maintained position. They did not adapt, but these were doing exactly that. What appeared to be a random cluster of communication and observation satellites began to move with mathematical precision. Not chaotic movement, calculated repositioning, as if the entire orbital infrastructure was a single living system becoming aware of an intruder. "Full stealth protocols," Rix commanded, his neural implants flooding with a cascade of defensive subroutines. The ship's quantum dampeners increased power. Adaptive camouflage reached maximum efficiency. By all known technological standards, the Shadow Cutter should have been completely undetectable. Should have been. A targeting pulse struck the ship's outer hull. Not a weapon discharge, a probe. A technological finger reaching out to touch and understand. "Impossible," muttered the ship's sensor specialist. "Our stealth systems are undetectable by any known." The communication cut off mid-sentence, because something was watching them, not just detecting, analyzing, learning. The orbital platforms, which moments ago had seemed like a hodgepodge of different technologies, now revealed a terrifying complexity. Each satellite wasn't just a standalone unit, they were communicating, sharing data, adapting. "Quantum encryption breach in progress," Mira announced, her voice now fully synthetic. Fear translated into pure information. Rix had seen quantum encryption breached exactly twice in his centuries-long career. Both times, it had taken weeks of concentrated effort by the most advanced cryptanalysis teams in the Zornak Empire. This breach was happening in seconds. "Emergency communication protocol," he ordered. But even as the words left his mouth, he knew it was futile. A message scrolled across their primary communication interface. In perfect Zornak dialect, grammatically precise, linguistically nuanced, system. "Scan complete, welcome to Earth." Then, almost as an afterthought, "Next time we won't miss." The ship's systems began to shut down. Not violently, not with an explosion or a system crash, but methodically, purposefully, as if being gently powered down by a careful technician. Rix felt something he had not experienced in over 3 centuries of military service. Genuine primal fear. This was not a planetary defense system. This was something else entirely. When the Shadow Cutter's emergency beacon finally activated, broadcasting its coordinates and a minimal distress signal, it carried with it something beyond data, a warning, a sense that the universe had just revealed a truth far more complex than any of them had understood. Earth was waiting, and Earth was not impressed. Back on the Zornak command ship, Captain Zara Vor would receive a transmission that would change everything. A single line of data that would make her secondary neural cluster pulse with an emotion her species had long since engineered out of their biology. Uncertainty. The Zornak Historical Archives occupied an entire planetary complex, a monument to imperial record-keeping that spanned millennia. Data crystals the size of small moons stored the collective memory of a civilization that had conquered hundreds of worlds. And now, they were hunting for ghosts. Archivist Prime Selnor moved with the calculated precision of someone who had dedicated 3 centuries to understanding the patterns of galactic conquest. His cybernetic augmentations allowed him to process information at speeds that would drive an unmodified biological mind to madness. But something about the Earth files was different. Impossible. Bring up the redacted files, he commanded. Holographic displays erupted around him, a constellation of fragmentary data. Each file was a puzzle, deliberately obscured, not by human hands, but by something more systematic, as if the very information was resisting complete comprehension. The first file concerned a Krell-Tax scout fleet from 47 standard galactic cycles ago. 17 ships, advanced reconnaissance unit, cutting-edge stealth technology. They had approached a planet, not Earth, but a human colony world. And then, nothing. Total communication blackout. Selner's neural interfaces began reconstructing the fragmented transmission. Most archivists would have accepted the official report, catastrophic system failure. But Selnor saw patterns. Patterns that didn't align with technological malfunction. The recovered transmission fragments told a bizarre story. Transmission. Fragment 1. System responding in ways that not possible. They're learning faster than we can. Transmission, Fragment 2. Our encryption. They're not breaking it. They're understanding it, rewriting it in real time. Transmission. Fragment 3, send warning. Do not. The transmission ended there. No explosion. No clear destruction. Just absence. Selnor pulled additional files. A Vornax diplomatic mission. A Trellick exploration vessel. A Garmhal research expedition. Each file showed the same. Pattern, approach, silence, absence. But absence was not destruction. Computer, he said, his voice a blend of biological resonance and electronic precision. Cross-reference all encounters with human-adjacent systems. Filter for incomplete data, unexplained communication loss, technological anomalies. The system hummed. Holographic displays began to populate with a terrifying consistency. Every single encounter showed the same pattern. A junior archivist, Rentok, barely a century old, approached cautiously. His carapace hadn't yet developed the intricate cybernetic integration of more senior members. Archivist Prime, he said. What are we seeing? Selnor's response was measured, clinical. We are seeing a species that does not fight wars. We are seeing a species that studies them. The implications were staggering. Most galactic civilizations develop technology through incremental advancement. Slow. Predictable. The Zornak themselves had spent millennia perfecting quantum encryption, adaptive camouflage, faster-than-light communication. Humans seemed to view technological advancement as a form of intellectual combat. More files emerged, fragmentary reports from species that had attempted initial probes near human space. Each report more disturbing than the last. A Krell-Tax military assessment noted, human technological adaptation occurs at rates that defy known evolutionary models. It is as if their entire civilization is a learning organism. A Trellick xenobiological report was even more unsettling. Humans do not merely respond to technological challenges. They seem to anticipate them, develop countermeasures before the challenge is fully articulated. Selnor's neural interfaces began running predictive models. Each simulation broke, collapsed, became something unexpected. They're not developing technology, he muttered more to himself than to Rentok. They're evolving it. The junior archivist looked confused. Sir? Selnor turned, his multiple eyes focusing with the intensity that made Rentok instinctively Take a step back. Imagine a species, he said slowly, that treats technological advancement not as a linear progression, but as a living, breathing ecosystem, where every challenge is an opportunity, where defeat is simply another form of data collection. A message scrolled across the primary display. Another recovered transmission fragment. They're not fighting, they're learning. Outside the archival complex, the first invasion fleet was being prepared, thousands of ships, centuries of military technological refinement, and not a single member of the Zornak Empire understood what was coming. The first wave of the Zornak invasion arrived like a metallic storm. 10,000 ships, each a testament to centuries of military engineering, quantum-reinforced hulls, adaptive energy weapons capable of turning entire planetary surfaces into molten glass, faster-than-light communication networks that could coordinate military actions with mathematical precision. Admiral Krastal watched from the command ship Eternal Dominion, his multiple eyes tracking the invasion fleet's perfect geometric formation. Holographic displays showed the approach to Earth, each ship a point of light moving with choreographed inevitability. Final approach initiated, announced the fleet's tactical coordinator. Defensive systems prediction, negligible resistance. Those would be the last words of certainty the Zornak would speak during the invasion. The first indication that something was wrong came 17 minutes into the approach. Earth's orbital defense network didn't just respond. It transformed. Satellites that moments ago appeared to be a random collection of communication and observation platforms began to move. Not with the jerky, predictable movements of mechanical systems, but with a fluidity that suggested something almost alive. Tactical anomaly, a junior officer reported, her voice trembling. Orbital platforms are reconfiguring. Admiral Krastal leaned forward. Reconfiguration was impossible. These were static defensive structures. They didn't have the capability. The first weapon discharge changed everything. It came from a point in space that shouldn't have existed. A satellite, or what had looked like a satellite, suddenly unfolded, not mechanically, organically, as if it had been waiting, watching, learning. The energy signature was unlike anything in the Galactic Warfare database. Defensive systems online, the tactical coordinator announced. But the words rang hollow, because the defenses weren't just online. They were evolving. Each Zornak weapon discharge was met with a response that defied technological logic. Defensive networks shifted, adapted, predicted. It was as if the entire orbital infrastructure was a single, living organism with one purpose: understanding, then neutralizing the threat. Lieutenant Mira, the ship's primary sensor specialist, began to laugh, a sound so incongruous with the moment that several bridge officers turned to stare. "Do you see it?" she said, her voice a mix of terror and academic excitement. "They're not just defending, they're studying us." Weapon systems that had taken the Zornak centuries to develop were being analyzed, understood, and countered in moments. Not through brute force, through something far more terrifying: intelligent adaptation. Intercepted human communications began to flood the Zornak communication networks, not panicked military orders, something else entirely. Interesting quantum resonance on the third, destroyer's portside weapon array. Fascinating adaptive encryption methodology, note for further analysis. Quantum entanglement disruption pattern confirmed, updating defensive protocols. It was clinical, analytical, as if the entire invasion was nothing more than an elaborate scientific experiment. The first wave of fighters discovered something horrifying. Their most advanced stealth technologies, systems that had rendered them invisible to every known detection method, were being systematically mapped, understood, and rendered useless, not by overwhelming force, by pure, unadulterated understanding. Total. System penetration impossible, the tactical AI reported, but its voice lacked conviction, because impossible was a concept humans seemed to treat as a mild suggestion. Admiral Krastal watched in growing horror as his perfect invasion began to unravel, not through destruction, through something far more terrifying, comprehensive, instantaneous learning. A transmission broke through the communication chaos, Direct, precise, in perfect Zornak dialect. Defensive systems analysis complete. Would you like to continue this conversation? The subtext was clear. This wasn't a threat. It was an invitation to learn. On one of the human communication channels, someone, presumably a human military officer, seemed to be enjoying this entirely too much. Is this seriously the best you've got? The invasion of Earth had begun, and nothing, absolutely nothing, was going according to plan. Dr. Elena Rodriguez sat in the most secure interrogation room in human military intelligence, facing a being that should have terrified her. The Zornak prisoner, a mid-level tactical officer named Rix, looked decidedly less intimidating than the classified reports had suggested. "So," she said, her voice calm and clinical, "shall we begin?" The universal translator hummed to life, bridging the linguistic divide with perfect precision. Rix's multiple eyes, a complex array of crystalline sensory organs, studied her with a mixture of confusion and something that almost resembled academic interest. "You are not going to torture me," he stated. It wasn't a question. Elena smiled. "Of course not. We're going to talk." The interrogation room was nothing like the prisoner expected. No harsh lights, no intimidation tactics. Instead, it looked more like a high-end research laboratory. Holographic displays danced with complex mathematical equations. Sensor arrays that could probably analyze a conversation at the molecular level were subtly integrated into the walls. "Your invasion fleet," Elena began, "represents approximately 3.7 centuries of military technological development. Fascinating approach to quantum encryption, by the way. The nested algorithmic layers are quite elegant." Rix froze. This was not how interrogations were supposed to proceed. The human wasn't attacking. She was analyzing, studying. "You're not afraid of me," he said finally. "Should I be?" Elena's eyebrow raised. "You're currently our most valuable research subject. Your physiological systems, your technological interfaces, they're remarkable." A holographic display materialized, showing a complex breakdown of Zornak biological systems. Rix realized with growing horror that the humans had already mapped his entire biological and technological infrastructure during his capture. Not through torture, through pure, unadulterated scientific curiosity. Elsewhere, in a massive underground facility, teams of researchers were doing something the Zornak military command would find incomprehensible. They were studying every piece of captured alien technology not as a weapon, but as a learning opportunity. Dr. Marcus Chen, head of Xenotechnological Research, was explaining to his team, "Look at their quantum communication systems. They're not just transmission networks. They're a form of distributed consciousness. Imagine if we could adapt this approach to our own communication infrastructure." The team wasn't preparing for war. They were preparing to learn. Back in the interrogation room, Elena continued her systematic deconstruction of Zornak military philosophy. "Your civilization treats technological advancement as a linear progression," she explained. "Incremental improvements, careful research, controlled development. We see it differently." Rix couldn't help himself. "And how do you see it?" "As an ecosystem," Elena responded instantly. "Every challenge is an opportunity. Every failure is data. Every encounter is a chance to understand something new." The Zornak prisoner began to understand why his entire invasion force had been so comprehensively neutralized. This wasn't a military response. It was something far more terrifying. It was a learning response. Across multiple research facilities, human scientists were doing something unprecedented. They were systematically analyzing every piece of Zornak technology, not to weaponize it, but to understand it, to potentially improve it. A young researcher named Dr. Aisha Kapoor was examining a Zornak communication module. Her notes were almost poetic in their scientific enthusiasm. Their neural interface technologies suggest a fundamentally different approach to biological-technological integration. Imagine if we could adapt these principles to medical prosthetics, to neural regeneration. The psychological warfare was subtle, devastating, completely unlike anything in the Zornak military playbook. The humans weren't trying to defeat the Zornak. They were trying to understand them. Your entire civilization, Rix finally said, treats conflict as a research project. Elena's smile was both terrifying and beautiful in its clinical precision. We treat everything as a research project, she corrected. Outside the facility, the remains of the Zornak invasion fleet were being systematically analyzed, not as conquered technology, but as the most fascinating scientific specimen ever encountered. The invasion had failed. But the real work was just beginning, and humanity couldn't be more excited about the opportunity. The presentation room at the Global Technological Coordination Center looked like something between a mission control facility and a cutting-edge university research lab. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before a holographic display that seemed to breathe with living information, her pointer dancing across layers of interconnected systems that defied conventional understanding. What you're seeing, she explained to the assembled military and scientific leaders, is not a defense network. It's a living, adaptive ecosystem. The hologram pulsed. Layers of technological infrastructure revealed themselves, not as static systems, but as a dynamic, interconnected organism. Universities, private tech companies, government research facilities, even individual innovators, all functioning as neurons in a global cognitive network. A senior military analyst leaned forward. Explain. Sarah's smile was equal parts scientific, enthusiasm, and something more predatory. Every technological challenge is an opportunity. Every potential threat is a learning moment. The display showed how the initial alien reconnaissance had triggered a response that was anything but conventional. Within moments of the first alien probe, research teams across the globe had begun analyzing the incoming data. Not just military, researchers. Everyone. A professor in Tokyo was already developing quantum encryption countermeasures. A graduate student in Sao Paulo was reverse engineering potential alien communication protocols. A tech startup in Silicon Valley was running simulation models of the alien ship's potential technological capabilities. It wasn't a defense system. It was a global problem-solving network. Look closer, Sarah continued. The hologram zoomed in, revealing something truly extraordinary. Each piece of infrastructure, from satellites to research facilities, wasn't just connected. They were constantly communicating, adapting, learning. A captured Zornak communication module lay dissected on a nearby table. But it wasn't just being studied. It was being understood, reimagined. We don't build weapons, one of the researchers muttered. We build solutions. The military leaders exchanged glances. This wasn't their traditional approach to planetary defense. This was something else entirely. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, head of the Distributed Intelligence Research Division, stepped forward. Our entire civilization is the adaptive learning system, he explained. The aliens didn't just encounter a planet. They encountered a global problem-solving mechanism. The hologram shifted, showing how information flowed between systems. Universities shared data with tech companies. Private research labs communicated with government facilities. Individual innovators were integrated into massive collaborative networks. What looked chaotic from a distance was actually a perfectly synchronized system. Every person is a potential solution generator, Sarah explained. Our defense isn't about stopping an invasion. It's about understanding and adapting faster than any threat can comprehend. A captured alien communication revealed the growing Zornak confusion. Their initial reports had classified Earth's technological infrastructure as primitive and disorganized. Now they were discovering something far more terrifying, a completely adaptive global intelligence. The military analysts saw something different, a defense system that didn't rely on traditional military might. Instead, it leveraged something far more powerful, collective human creativity. They think we're building weapons, one analyst said quietly. We're actually building understanding. The hologram continued to pulse. Research teams were already developing new technologies based on the alien encounter. Quantum communication improvements, advanced neural interface technologies, adaptive encryption systems that made the Zornak's most advanced technologies look like children's toys. Sarah pointed to a section of the display. See how quickly we're integrating their technological concepts? We're not just defending, we're evolving. It was beautiful, terrifying, completely incomprehensible to any traditional military model. A global organism, learning, adapting, growing. The invasion wasn't a threat. It was an opportunity, and humanity was absolutely thrilled about the possibilities. Dr. Rodriguez looked at the assembled team, his eyes reflecting the pulsing holographic display. They came looking for a planet to conquer, he said quietly. They found a global problem-solving machine. The hologram continued to pulse, alive, aware, waiting. Humanity wasn't just ready, humanity was excited. Admiral Krastal watched in growing horror as the tactical displays transformed before his eyes. What should have been a moment of imperial triumph had become something entirely unexpected. The humans weren't just defending, they were consuming. Each piece of Zornak technology that entered Earth's sphere of influence underwent a metamorphosis that defied every known principle of technological development. Captured ships, weapon systems, communication modules, they weren't being studied. They were being reborn. In a high-security research facility buried beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before a captured Zornak destroyer's primary quantum communication array. Her team worked with a combination of surgical precision and childlike excitement. "Look at the quantum entanglement protocols," she said, her fingers dancing across a holographic interface. "They're not just efficient, they're poetry." Her colleague, Dr. Marcus Chen, didn't look up from his workstation. "We can make them better." And they were. Within hours, the Zornak's most advanced communication technology had been not just understood, but fundamentally reimagined. The original designers wouldn't have recognized their own technology. The first indication of what was coming reached the Zornak command ship as a transmission that seemed to mock the very concept of technological warfare. "Thanks for the upgrade, we'll take it from here." Aboard the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Krastal's secondary neural cluster began to experience something dangerously close to panic. Panic was an emotion his species had engineered out centuries ago. Yet here it was, undeniable and growing. The tactical displays showed something impossible. Zornak weapon systems, captured and integrated into human defense networks, were being modified in ways that violated every known principle of technological adaptation. Energy signatures shifted. Quantum encryption was rewritten. Entire system architectures were not just improved, they were fundamentally transformed. "They're not copying our technology," one of his tactical officers said, her voice a mix of terror and reluctant admiration. "They're evolving it." On the surface of a research facility in the Nevada desert, a team of engineers was doing something that would have been considered impossible by any known galactic civilization. They were playing. A captured Zornak fighter lay dissected, its components spread across multiple workstations. But this wasn't a clinical autopsy. This was exploration, curiosity given mechanical form. "Look at the quantum resonance coupling," one engineer said, holding up a complex energy transfer module. "If we modify the harmonic interface here," another interrupted, "we could potentially increase energy efficiency by 327%. Laughter, excitement, the pure joy of understanding something new. The Zornak command ship intercepted communications that made no sense through a traditional military lens. Quantum entanglement protocol is fascinating. Imagine medical applications. These energy transfer systems could revolutionize renewable infrastructure. The biological-technological interface is groundbreaking. They weren't preparing for war. They were preparing to innovate. Admiral Krastal received a transmission that would be discussed in Zornak military academies for generations. A simple message, sent on a frequency hijacked from their own most secure communication network. "Loving the tech upgrade. Any chance we could discuss some improvements?" The humans had done something truly terrifying. They had turned an invasion into a collaborative research project. In orbit, captured Zornak ships began to transform. Not through weapons, through understanding. Entire weapon systems were being reimagined. Quantum communication arrays were being rewritten. Propulsion systems were being upgraded in ways that made the original designers weep with a combination of horror and reluctant admiration. "We're not just defending," Dr. Rodriguez said to her team, watching a holographic display of a transformed alien fighter. "We're improving." The invasion had become something else entirely, a technological exchange, an opportunity, a chance to learn. And humanity couldn't be more excited about the possibilities. The Zornak had come to conquer. They would leave having been conquered by something far more dangerous: human curiosity. The United Nations Special Assembly looked nothing like a traditional diplomatic meeting. Holographic displays from every captured Zornak system surrounded the central platform. Representatives from scientific institutions, military branches, and global tech companies sat alongside alien diplomats, the first of their kind. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stepped forward, carrying something that looked deceptively simple: a data crystal harvested from the Zornak command ship. But in her hands it was far more than just technology. It was a message. "You didn't just encounter a planet," she began, her voice calm and precise. "You encountered a global problem-solving mechanism." Admiral Krastal, now a diplomatic liaison rather than a military commander, listened with a mixture of terror and reluctant admiration. The humans hadn't just defeated the invasion, they had transformed it. The presentation began. Holographic. Displays showed the entire arc of the Zornak invasion. Each moment of attempted conquest was now revealed as something entirely different. Not a military engagement, but a comprehensive systems analysis. "We've been studying you," Elena explained. "Just as you were studying us. The first probe, the initial reconnaissance, the full-scale invasion. Each moment was revealed not as a moment of conflict, but of mutual discovery. The humans had deliberately allowed the invasion to proceed, not out of weakness, but out of scientific curiosity. Every technological system you brought," she continued, "has been analyzed, understood, and, where possible, improved. Captured Zornak ships now orbited Earth. But they weren't trophies of war. They were collaborative research platforms. Each one modified, upgraded, transformed into something that combined the best of both civilizations." A representative from a global tech consortium stepped forward. "Your quantum communication protocols? They've already revolutionized our global communication infrastructure. Your energy transfer systems are solving critical climate challenges." Admiral Krastal realized the true horror of what had happened. The invasion hadn't been stopped. It had been repurposed, transformed, turned into something neither civilization had anticipated. A conversation. "We could have destroyed you," Elena said quietly. "But that would have been a waste of a fascinating opportunity." The Zornak diplomatic team exchanged glances. Their entire concept of conquest had been fundamentally rewritten. Holographic displays showed the comprehensive analysis. Every piece of Zornak technology that had entered Earth's sphere of influence had been not just studied, but reimagined. Weapon systems became medical technologies. Communication protocols solved global infrastructure challenges. Energy transfer systems addressed climate change. "You came looking for a planet to conquer," one of the human representatives said. "You found a civilization that views every challenge as an opportunity to learn." The final revelation was both terrifying and beautiful. Humanity hadn't just defended itself. It had turned an invasion into the most comprehensive technological and cultural exchange in galactic history. Admiral Krastal finally understood. The humans hadn't defeated the Zornak invasion, they had transformed it. A young researcher approached the alien delegation, holding what looked like a modified version of a Zornak communication module. "We thought you might be interested in seeing what we've developed," she said, her voice a mixture of scientific excitement and diplomatic courtesy. The module was a hybrid, part Zornak technology, part human innovation, something entirely new: diplomacy. Elena Rodriguez said to the assembled representatives, "Is just another form of problem solving." The invasion was over. The real work was just beginning. Outside the assembly hall, modified Zornak ships, now hybrid human-alien technologies, orbited Earth. Not as a threat, but as a promise of what could be achieved when two civilizations chose to understand rather than destroy. The galaxy watched, and humanity smiled. Because the most dangerous weapon was never a gun. It was curiosity.